President Trump reportedly is pressuring members of his own party regarding the Russia investigations. This as lawmakers craft legislation to protect special counsel Robert Mueller, who is probing any possible ties between the president's campaign and Moscow. The headline of a Politico article catches our attention. Trump clashed with multiple GOP senators over Russia. It said, the article goes on to say, quote, President Donald Trump privately vented his frustration over Russia-related matters with at least 2 other Republican senators this month, according to people familiar with the conversations, in addition to the president's public admonishments of Mitch McConnell, John McCain, and Jeff Flake. Joining us now, Isaac Wright, a former executive director for the pro-Clinton super PAC, Correct the Record. David Avella is the chairman of GoPAC. That's a national organization dedicated to educating and electing the next generation of Republican leaders. So, David, when you hear that a Republican president is apparently leaning on senators from his own party, what goes through your mind?
The only investigation and conversations that matter is the one Robert Mueller is conducting and the interactions that go on between his legal team and Mueller's legal team, which media reports also state that Mueller is pleased with the cooperation they've gotten from President Trump and his legal team. And let me also add, as legal experts have noted, the longer this investigation goes on, the more people will start to see that there's nothing to these claims if indictments don't actually start happening or real evidence isn't shown that somehow Russia somehow impacted the U.S. elections.
The investigation, Isaac, is underway, but so far nothing has come out of it. What do we read into that?
Well, I think a lot has come out of it. Just this week, we found more emails of Trump's inner circle at the White House who, during the campaign, were talking about setting up meetings with Vladimir Putin. And let's remember, that's the second senior Trump person. There was a campaign official named George Papadopoulos that came out earlier that were trying to set up meetings with Vladimir Putin. His former campaign manager, Paul Manafort, is now in hot water for laundering up to $100 million of Russian money. I think a lot's been coming out of this. That's why the investigation needs to continue. It's why we cannot allow obstruction of justice by our president trying to pressure U.S. senators of his own party into interfering with the investigation, because we need the truth.
Well, I guess there's nothing that says that what he's done so far, David, amounts to obstruction of justice. You know, he's pressuring senators, but there may not be any there. We don't know.
He's had conversations with senators. There's nothing wrong in America with 2 people having a heated discussion and voicing their opinions. And the other interesting thing about this is Isaac made some very broad stroke brushes there. No Democrat has said specifically how did Russia influence voters' thinking that made them think Hillary Clinton shouldn't be elected president of the United States. Not one Democrat has ever come out with a specific as to how Russia impacted the election. It is always
Dave, I think we should default to the
brushes.
intelligence community, which has virtually unanimously said, the U.S. intelligence community has virtually unanimously said that the Russians were interfering and meddling with our election.
Well,
I don't understand why it's so hard to get pundits on the other side of the aisle to say that American democracy should be protected and defended against its foreign enemies and adversaries. But that shouldn't be a partisan issue. We should all be able to agree on that. For that matter, we should all be worried about the fact that Jared Kushner still has a national security clearance 40 days after it became public. He scheduled a meeting in order to attempt to collude with the Russians, and then denied it and falsified, covering it up, leaving it off intentionally, off of his national security documents to get that clearance.
But Isaac, the Russians have long sought to meddle in lots of elections, not only ours, and the sad fact is the United States has meddled in elections in the past.
Wow, I am amazed that we are equating our country with Russia. Well, that is disappointing. It is something that President Trump did to talk about the sins of America.
The United
States.
That is
a false moral equivalency to compare our country, which has worked so hard to export democracy to other countries, with Russia's time and time again attempts to meddle, not, as you're right, not only in our elections, but in others. We've seen where they have meddled successfully in Eastern European elections.
All right. David, I'll give you the last word.
no one seemed to have a problem when President Obama sent his chief campaign strategist over to deal with the Israeli elections. We've heard,
that's
as you
the point
pointed out very
that's
well,
the issue I was
Those were democratic elections, those were democratic elections. Those weren't interfering with negative intention. There is a difference between cyber warfare and democracy.
Specifically, what did Russia put out there that made one American have a different opinion of Hillary Clinton?
They hacked countless emails. They hacked countless emails and turned them over. They employed bots on the internet and social media. I mean, this stuff is well reported. The U.S. intelligence agencies have talked about it. To try to create a smokescreen that doesn't exist is just downright silly and farcical.
Find me 5 voters who first heard that information and got a different opinion of Hillary Clinton. People had their opinion of Hillary Clinton. Look at the polling numbers.
Dave's point is that it's okay for the Russians to interfere with our elections if they're unsuccessful?
No, it's not.
Yeah, that's what you just said.
No,
okay,
it's
then
not.
I appreciate the fact that you reversed that.
I think
it's not okay. What you haven't done is proven that information they received impacted their view of Hillary Clinton, thus who they ultimately voted for. People's favorable, unfavorable opinion of Hillary
to meddle in our elections and hack our democracy if they're not successful. That's your point.
He's not saying that,
Isaac,
hacking
our elections.
We're going to have to leave.
If you can't find somebody to say that they were successful, it's not a question of whether or not they hacked our elections. It's a problem for you. It's whether or not they were successful.
They didn't.
Why can't we just defend our democracy?
They didn't hack our elections. They didn't change any votes. We're going to have to leave it there, gentlemen. Isaac Wright, David Avella. Thank you both.
Thank you.
Heated.